Hey guys, Miss Fearon here. Welcome to Unit 5 Notes 2. We are going to start looking at graphing quadratics. So yesterday we looked at all the different parts of the parabola. So we are now going to use what we know about those parts and then put these into a graph function. So to graph parabolas, we're going to look at taking 3 steps. Our first step is something we looked at yesterday. We need to find the vertex. Remember, the vertex is an xy coordinate point. And to find the x value, we use the equation x equals opposite of b divided by 2a. We then get that answer and plug it in to the original equation to find the y value. So we're going to find the vertex first, and then we're going to create a table. The vertex is going to be the middle number. We then need to find the 2 values above and the 2 values below for the x coordinate only. Our third step is going to be then to substitute the x value in and find the y for each of those other points. Really important, don't forget, if a is positive, then your graph should open up. If a is negative, it should open down. So you always want to double check at the end, is my graph opening the way that it should, or did I do something wrong during my graphing? So let's go ahead and look at this first example here. This is actually example number 1 on your form. It's y equals negative 3x squared plus 6x plus 4. So step 1 is we want to find the vertex, and we're going to put the vertex right here in the middle. So this is going to be my vertex. So to find the vertex, we're going to do x equals the opposite of b over 2 times a. So remember, my a comes from the x squared coefficient, my b comes from the x coefficient, and my c is just the constant. So my b value is 6, so the opposite of 6 is negative 6, divided by 2 times a negative 3. So I'm going to get negative 6 over negative 6. So I'm going to get a 1 for my x value of my vertex. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug that in to x to find the other values find the value for y. So I'm going to get y equals negative 3 times 1 squared plus 6 times 1 plus 4. So if I put all that in my calculator, I ended up getting 7 as my y value. So now I need to find the 2 numbers above and the 2 numbers below for the x value. So the 2 numbers above 1 are 2 and 3, and the 2 numbers below 1 are 0 and 1. If you have those flops, so you have the 0 and 1 on top and the 3 and the 2 on the bottom, that's okay as long as you have the 2 numbers above and the 2 numbers below. So now I'm going to plug in. I always like plugging in 0 if I can because that's an easy one. So I'm going to plug in the 0 and the 1. Sorry, that should be a negative 1, right? I'm going to plug in 0 and negative 1. So if I plug in 0, I'm going to get y equals negative 3 times 0 squared plus 6 times 0 plus 4. Plug that into my calculator, I'm going to end up getting 4. And now I'm going to plug in a negative 1, so I'm going to get y equals negative 3 times negative 1 squared plus 6 times negative 1 plus 4. I end up getting a negative 5. If you don't end up getting those numbers, please come check with me before moving on. It's probably just because you're plugging it into your calculator a little funky. So now if you remember from yesterday, our axis of symmetry goes through our vertex right here. So this is the point where my points round back over. So I know then that this 4 is going to be the same in that box. So this is going to be 4. And then the bottom will be the same as the top. So this is going to be negative 5. So again, that's because my vertex is my axis of symmetry. That's the point where the graph will turn a corner or round back and go the opposite direction. So the points are going to be the same, just on the other side of the coordinate. So step 1 then is I'm going to graph my vertex first. So I'm going to go over 1, up 7. I'm going to plot that point. And then I'm going to plot the other one. So I'm going 2, 4, and 3, negative 5. And then I have 0, 4, and negative 1, negative 5. So here's my parabola. Whoop. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check. It does open down, and my a value is negative. So everything looks good. It makes that shape that I want it to make. It makes a U shape. If your graph does not make that U shape, either upside down U or right side up U, then you did something funky. So our last step is we need to tell if the vertex is a maximum or a minimum. So since this opens down, I have my vertex up here. So it's a high point. So this is going to be a maximum. So here's example number 2 then. I have y equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. So again, I know that I need to find the vertex first. So I need to find these two numbers first, and then everything else is based off of those two. So I can tell that I need to do the x equals opposite of b divided by 2 times a. Well, my a is the coefficient in front of the x squared, so it's a 1. My b is going to be the 2, and my c will be the 1. So plug that in, I get opposite of b divided by 2 times a. So I get negative 2 divided by 2. So I'm going to get a negative 1. So that's the x value. So now remember, to find the y, I just plug that back into the original equation. So I get y equals negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 plus 1. When I put that in my calculator, I end up getting a 0. So now I'm going to find the two x values above and the two below. So the two numbers above negative 1 are 0, 1, and the two below are negative 2, negative 3. So again, I like to plug in the zeros if I can, so I'm going to plug in the 0 and the 1. I'm going to get y equals 0 squared plus 2 times 0 plus 1. I get a 1. Plug in the 1, I get y equals 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 1. I got a 4. I know that my vertex is my axis of symmetry, so these numbers are going to round back around. So now I can go ahead and I can plot these. So I'm going to go negative 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 4, negative 2, 1, negative 3, 4. There's my graph. My a value is positive, so this opens up, which is good. And it makes that U shape, so that's awesome. So then the last thing I'm going to tell is if the vertex is a maximum or a minimum. Well, again, it opens up, so the vertex is a low point. It's down here. So since it's a low point, it's going to be a minimum. So this is example number 3 on yours. I have y equals x squared minus 2x minus 8. I want you to go ahead and try this one on your own. So remember, find the vertex first. Everything is based off of that vertex. And then find the two numbers below, the two numbers above for x, plug them in, plot your points. So try it on your own, come back and check your work here in a second. So here's what I ended up getting when I did the problem. If you did this and you got like a negative 1 for your vertex because you forgot to take the opposite of b, then your numbers are going to be wrong and it's going to throw your graph off. So be very, very careful when you're trying to find your vertex. Don't forget to take the opposite of b divided by 2 times a. So that's going to be the biggest thing you have to watch for when doing these problems is that your vertex is correct. If you got this one wrong, please come chat with me before moving on. So here's our next example. This is example number 4. I have y equals a negative 3x squared. So again, I still need to find this vertex. We always start with that. And then we're going to find the rest of the numbers based off of my vertex. So I'm going to start with x equals the opposite of b divided by 2 times a. So in this situation, my a, again, is the coefficient with the x squared, so it's negative 3. My b would be the number with the x's. Well, if I wrote an x, I'd have 0 of them. So my b is 0. And then my c would be my constant. So again, there's no constant there, so if I plugged one in, it would be a 0 as well. So my c is 0 as well. So the opposite of 0 is still 0 divided by 2 times negative 3. 0 divided by negative 6 is still going to give me 0, so my vertex is 0. So the two numbers above, 1, 2, negative 1, negative 2. I'm going to plug the vertex in. Y equals negative 3 times 0 squared. So I'm going to get a 0 for that. Y equals negative 3 times 1 squared. So I'm going to end up with a negative 3. And then y equals negative 3 times 2 squared. So that's going to end up getting me a negative 12. So if I round these around again, I'm going to end up with a negative 3 and a negative 12. Plot my points here. I'm at 0, 0, 1, negative 3, 2, negative 12 is going to be all the way down here. So I still make that U shape. My A is negative, so it opens down, which is good. So since it opens down, my vertex is up at the top, which makes my vertex a maximum.